Schultz News and Commentary with you at WeGotIt.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com. The Iowa tap dance continues. That's exactly what it is. We're going to talk this morning about Scott Walker, about how he is kind of lost in the shuffle. He's bland. He's boring. His radical lies about his record in Wisconsin just don't even seem to be connecting. We'll get to all of that. Also, how Hillary Clinton is defending her email situation. But in the midst of this entire campaign, there are diminishing voices for American workers. Very little attention was paid to what China did last week. All the Wall Streeters are looking at China saying, well, you know, they're just having kind of a downturn. Their stock market's having a hard time, and they're just playing with their currency a little bit so they can bring their economy back. Leo Gerard wrote an op-ed that appeared in Huffington Post on Monday, which should catch the eye of every American. China protects its workers. America doesn't bother. Now, that is a catchy title. It's short, it's to the point, and it is the situation. He writes, confronted with a dire situation, a world power last week took strong action to secure its domestic jobs and manufacturing. That was China, not the United States. If you've paid attention to any of the work I've been doing in the last year on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Trade Promotional Authority, you know exactly where I stand on all of this and how China has been the culprit for years. The United States Senate has had a conversation about currency manipulation, but they haven't done a damn thing about it. Currency manipulation violates free market principles. Republicans don't care. They allow China to do whatever they want to do. The nation's economy is cooling off, he writes, talking about China. Its stock market just crashed, and its economic powerhouse exports declined a substantial 8.3% in July, down to $195 billion from $213 billion the previous July. That's a hell of a swing. So now what we're going to do is get involved in a trade agreement which is going to benefit China more than it will American workers. And in the meantime, we're talking about Donald Trump and what he's going to do with immigration. What should be on the radar screen is what American workers are facing right now. Joining us this morning is Leo Gerard. He is the president of United Steelworkers International, and he has been bullseyed on this issue for years. He is one of the very few people that has consistently pointed to what China has done to our economy and how in this election cycle there's very little attention being paid to it. Mr. Gerard, good to have you with us this morning.
Good to be with you.
Where does this leave American politicians when these kinds of things are happening? What's the political landscape here for us to turn this around?
Well, look at it. It's a really good question, and I have a sad answer. American politicians have no concept of what the hell's going on. And the few that do are unable to move the agenda. And I don't want to leave the impression that we don't have some good, solid allies like Sherrod Brown and Elizabeth Warren and people like that, Bernie Sanders. But the majority of the Democrats and the overwhelming, almost unanimity on Republican side, ignore this stuff. The fact of the matter is exactly what the headline said in the blog we did. The fact is that China was losing its competitive advantage. So what they did was they adjusted their currency downward so that they would have an advantage in their exports, and there'd be penalty for anybody that's trying to import into China. And we just need to be yelling and screaming about this. And there's a reason that Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are sucking all the air up out of, because they're literally, I mean, Trump is Trump. But he's talking about, and Bernie Sanders is talking about the issues that people are angry about. They see that China's economy is going down. China acts on behalf of its economy and on behalf of its workers. It's a totalitarian state. Here we have a democracy that sees what's happening to its workers, and they ignore it. So there's a lot for us to be angry about here.
The report, Manufacturing Job Loss, Trade Not Productivity is its culprit, is something that came out recently from the Economic Policy Institute. It's detailing how the United States has lost millions of manufacturing jobs in the last 15 years. And no one seems to be talking about or coming up with a formula on what's going to reverse this trend. The nuts and bolts of who we are and what we do is changing, and the only people that are standing up and making this case are those in organized labor. Or do I have that wrong?
No, I think it's totally accurate. We have some other allies. We've got some allies on some of the issues in the environmental movement. We've got allies in other progressive movements, the civil rights movement. African American men and women get hit very, very hard when their jobs are gone. Women lose a lot of jobs, so that there's some other supporting structure there. But the folks that are taking the fight are the trade unions, and in particular our union. And we filed 27 trade cases in the first 6 months of the year. We win, 9 out of 10. And the reason we win 9 out of 10 is they cheat. All we need to do is gather the facts, put them in. Now, the problem with that is it takes 18 months, 2 years. I mean, a quick case might take 15 months. And during that time, we're getting beat up by cheaters. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that, again, there was a show on 60 Minutes on Sunday, what they call lumber liquidators, that was bringing in flooring, and it was laced with formaldehyde from China. And so they had to pull their stuff off the shelves. Well, we can make that here. We represent workers in the forest industry, but they're trying to get it at the regardless of the rules. So there'll be a trade case on that. There'll be a trade case on paper. There'll be a trade case on aluminum. There'll be a trade case on tire and rubbers, and then we'll do all of that stuff. We'll win. By the time we'll have won, we'll have lost thousands of jobs, and then the Chinese will find another way to cheat.
It seems like the political system isn't set up for us to address China manipulating their currency, that this is going to continue anytime they have some sort of a downturn economically or anytime they want to adjust their market. But the fact is that there doesn't seem to be, number one, the political will or the political mechanism for us to address this. What about that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and there's a lack of what I would call economic patriotism. We're prepared to call all kinds of people patriots, but where's the economic patriotism? You take on currency. The currency bill was passed by a big margin in the Senate when they actually knew that it would never get out of the House. Then it was passed by a big majority in the House when they knew it wouldn't get out of the Senate. Now we could get it passed if both of them stood up and became economic patriots. We could whack China for its currency manipulation. We could set up tougher enforcement rules. We should have a government that enforces the rule, not having to wait for the labor movement to bring cases forward. That, it'd be like putting up a stop sign or a stoplight and telling the world that there's a stoplight there, and it's, we hope that you'll follow it, but if not, we won't be around to enforce it. Well, we've got rules of trade, and they never seem to be enforced unless we bring a case forward.
Now, you wrote that China and pointed out that China lowered the value of its currency for 3 consecutive days last week for a total of 4.4%, and pointed out that that's the largest decline in 2 decades.
Yeah.
So what does that mean in the long haul for us?
Well, what it means in the long haul is, first of all, China has been responding to minimal pressure by saying, well, that they're in the process of lowering raising their currency, letting the market set the currency rate. And it inched up maybe 0.5% once or twice. And then as soon as the economy starts to be in trouble, they lower their currency by a huge margin. That's a huge margin. And what it does is it's very simple. It penalizes any imports that are trying to make their way into China, and it gives their exports out of China a huge advantage. And so their stuff becomes cheaper in America, and our stuff becomes more expensive in China. And Ed, I'm not sure if I said this before on your show, but 2013, the Chinese said their objective was to have $100 billion with a B dollars of auto parts in the North American market by the end of 2016. If they manage to get $100 billion of auto parts into the market in the supply chain. It will eviscerate the North American supply chain for the auto industry. We push the Commerce Department, we push USTR, we pushed a number of people to respond to that. We tried to file a trade case on auto parts, but we couldn't define what an auto part was. Is it a seatbelt? Is it a muffler? Is it a tire rim? What is it? So we did more investigation, and with the help at the time of Gene Sperling from the White House, with the economic office of the White House, Gene found out that China had an export subsidy for every one of their auto parts. So we proceeded to put pressure on USTR and Commerce to respond to the export subsidy that China has on its auto parts. That's now almost 3 years, and they're at what they call the consultative stage. Well, they can consult till the cows come home, and we'll end up losing our jobs. So we need to gain. I'm going to be raising this with the White House and USTR and Commerce that they got to quit consulting and start acting.
United Steelworkers International President Leo Gerard with us here on the Ed Schultz News and Commentary Internet broadcast. Leo, good to have you with us. Keep up the fight. Great work. You can find this op-ed on Huffington Post. It's entitled, China Protects Its Workers, America Doesn't Bother. Leo, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ed, and you're our voice, and we appreciate all the hard work you do standing up for workers as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to a busy schedule this fall, no question about it, out and about being an activist for workers. Thanks, Leo. We'll do it again.
Be careful of those big Canadian fish. They bite back.
We got a 41-incher yesterday, although I wasn't in that boat, but I should have been.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Leo.
Bye.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this podcast. Scott Walker trying to be relevant on the Iowa tap dancing stage as the campaign season continues. That's next. Stay with us. We're right back.